This is for the nerds, this is for the brainiacs, this what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back, you ain't gonna touch me, you not gonna do nothing, you are not above me, I bet you wish you was me, I know it, I know.
What is poppin', everybody?
And welcome back
To a new
episode
of the Only Friends podcast.
And you know,
I'm here
with
my only friends.
and who does that include?
My boy Tortu!
Cody's back in the building, baby.
What is poppin', kids?
Let's go.
That wasn't even rehearsed. I'm
Not
impressed.
at all. Not at all.
That was the most impressive part.
We came up with that on the fly.
I'm definitely impressed. Conrad just looks at him and he goes, "Well, say welcome."
Oh, that's why it says buzzing.
It's all wrapped up like a...
What the? Okay.
Well, just unplug it and we'll tell you if it's what's buzzing.
Yep.
All right, cool. We'll figure it out.
Cool.
What's up, Psychic?
Oh yeah,
That's definitely what was buzzing.
I said it's the one that's all wrapped up and coiled around.
Yeah.
Conrad was too busy planning his intro beforehand to actually sort out the mic.
Yep.
Yeah, he's not a. Well, that didn't help.
Well, I think the cord is just bad because
I mean, look, like
it is what it is.
Production sensitive. Chords actually are very rarely bad.
So did we just hit a one-outer?
No, I mean, it's probably fine, but yeah, if we can get a replacement cord, that would be great. Connor, if you want to take one from one of the other mics, that'd be good. We have a very fun episode today where we're going to be looking at Bluffgate. A lot of hands got tabled this past session, and there was a whole lot of nothing from one side or the other. Kind of interesting because it was pretty obvious to me that Airball was tilting out of his fucking mind this session, and also this is the probably first session where I actually felt like he was trying to bluff. So it's weird because in theory he should have been playing better, but in practice it wasn't working out all that well. Yeah. I guess ill-timed bluffs aren't really the same as actually having some sort of balance. So we have some fun hands to look at. We're joined as always by Mr. Hunt.
Hello, production is too busy to switch the camera over to me. But
Wait,
hello,
why are we switching an entire mic? What's happening?
Because I can't switch.
Hey everybody.
Oh, then just let it go.
Let me cook.
Wait, what the fuck is going on?
You guys can't
Guapo?
see it here, but production and Conrad are really deep in the wires over in the corner.
Bro, unplug the wire from the mic and plug it in Conrad's.
Yeah. Just the wire.
Just the wire,
Just the
guys.
wire. Oh, it's attached to the pole.
This one has to come all the way through.
And it's all taped down.
All right, well then,
We'll get it.
Conrad, take a day off, mate. Take a day off. We'll see you later. You're not gonna have anything to say anyway.
Did you just say mate? I don't want to ever hear an American say mate again.
I'm mimicking Henry. He loves that phrase.
Yeah, take a day
off,
off, mate.
Bro, this is not a thing.
It is now. He's back.
We've got Conrad
Let him
back,
cook.
just holding the arm.
There you go.
Mic arm.
Yeah, he's popping. He's good.
We popping. You know, it's just, we don't need this shit anymore.
Nope.
It's out of the way.
Yep.
How was Florida, Conrad?
Florida's amazing, man. That series is just sick. The main got like 2,300.
Over
I think
a million?
It was.
Million to first, right? Over
1.1 to first.
That's actually smaller for their 3,500s.
No,
maybe not.
No,
Yeah,
it's
around
not. No,
seven.
You might be right.
This tournament last year got $1 million to first. Mark Davis won it.
Yeah, I think I'm thinking that it should always be more than $1 million to first, and it's usually
it's
like 800.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's like 758. Something. But I don't know, man. Tournaments are popping. That series was
They are
dope.
popping.
Even the 5K. How many runners did he get when you got second or third? Whatever.
In what? When did I ever get second or third in?
The only tournament you ever got second or third in.
Yeah,
the 5K
Florida,
in
remember?
Florida.
Remember you were in for like...
The 30K. Sorry, that's why.
Yeah, sure. The turbo. Second place was 170 something, I think.
170.
I think so. And first was like 2 1/4.
Okay. This time,
it might have been a little bit more between first and second. Maybe like a 70K heads up match.
Like that.
All right. Well, shout out to my boy Francis.
Francis Anderson?
He got second in
Nice.
the 5K. Bin Win just chip leading the main again. He has 150 big blinds.
Today's the final day.
Yeah. No, I think they play it out here actually.
Oh, they're playing down
they
to the
play it
top
at the
table.
end of the month. They play it on
Yeah.
like the 25th or something.
So Bin's being Bin. You know, he's just gonna win another WPT because he's Bin.
Yeah.
Ben knows
He's
how to
the
win.
fucking best. There's nobody better than Bin.
The MTT scene is so fucking wild, man. It's like such a whole separate community. There's a whole. You guys are all so much nicer to one another.
Yeah.
You know.
We don't issue heads up challenges all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, you know, not. It's obviously super cutthroat, but I feel like these little packs and cliques form, and like you guys see each other at every single stop, and
Yeah, it's probably the travel. Like I think certainly I don't travel a lot, obviously, but the vibe I got at PCA was that a lot of people meet there or see each other there that don't see each other that often during the year. So
Right.
you only see someone a few times and then you catch up with them, and it's just kind of a different sort of vibe to where you're playing cash and you're battling against each other consistently on a day-to-day basis, I guess.
I
Yeah,
mean, we say that, but I'm pretty sure that most of these people hang out with these other players at tournament stops rather than like their family. There's so many tournament stops that it's just like
That's probably
Yeah, and then
true.
like the World Series is like summer camp for everybody, right?
Yeah,
You see-
it's poker summer camp.
You see
That's
people that
definitely
you
what it
see
is.
like once a year.
this is such an absolute shit show.
No, he's doing good. Got it.
This is
Let me
remarkable.
cook.
This is
Let me cook.
just astonishing
Do
stuff
you
here.
hear me? I said let me cook.
This is the high production value you guys get with S4Y.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, I
Hit that
imagine.
like button.
I imagine the like cliques form, like, you know, the people who smoke together end up like becoming friendlier and start rooming and shit like that, and then the people who hit the gym together, that's like a separate little cohort.
Yeah, and something I noticed at PCA too is there's like these little like nationality cliques. But
Oh, yeah, of course.
Where there's like the Brazilian crew that all like congregate together on breaks. And
I don't
there's,
remember
like,
if it was the Brazilians or the Spanish guys that came in like they were like introduced.
That was Brazilians.
Okay,
That was
yeah,
the
they were
Brazilians,
literally
yeah.
introduced into the main event of PCA.
Yeah.
Like collectively, there was like 50 of them.
And they came in with like a soccer chant and
Yeah, they
stuff.
had like
it was
they had like a
crazy.
mariachi band behind them, and like there was this whole production. I'm like, what is happening right now? Why are we like they did a Phil Hellmuth like entrance?
Yeah, the Brazilians really like to make a show of it. That's for sure.
God bless. Good for them, man. Good for them. It's not for me though. I don't want anything to do with these tournaments, man. I'm here to play some cash, and we are here to look at some heads up, no limit hold'em spots. So as always, I haven't given you these spots prior. You've read through the chat, but nothing beyond that. So you're gonna pick your brain a little bit through these spots. There's some interesting ones, man. We took it to the fucking streets.
Yeah, you played some hands.
Yeah.
You played some hands this week.
We played 2 5-bet pots, 4 4-bet pots, and then way more 3-bet pots than I think we've played the entire match combined. So this one should get a little bit interesting. But we're going to start it off a little on the boring side. We're going to come with a single raise pot. First hand is going to be me opening pocket 7s on the button. And we are going to see a flop of 10-5-3 rainbow. I'm going to go ahead and bet quarter. This is pretty standard. Small flop bet. I actually think I probably could size up to like 40, but like whatever. He floats. Turn is an offsuit queen. It's going to go check, check. And then the river is another queen. And he's going to choose to bet 75%. All of this is a very standard hand. That wasn't really why I chose it. My hand's a pure call. One of the better bluff catchers I'm going to have for sure.
For sure.
Snap his dick off. And do you know what the man showed up with here?
I'm gonna let me try to think of like a hand that he shouldn't have, but he might convince himself to have. Did he have like king deuce of diamonds or something? Like maybe he's actually supposed to have that. I don't know.
No, king deuce of diamonds would be very reasonable.
Yeah, that's
Very reasonable.
much too reasonable. Did he? I
Quite
don't
reasonable,
know. I don't know.
actually.
I can't even think of what he might have had.
Well, look at the flop texture, 10-5-3. If we can remember back to the mistake I made with Jack 6 off on the 10-7.
Did he have like Jack 7 off or something? Like
So much worse than that.
Wow.
Jack 7 off actually makes it to the river here.
oh wow,
No,
really?
I'm sorry, it doesn't. You're right, it does not.
Okay.
Jack Deuce.
What's worse than Jack 7 off on that board? Like there's not a lot. Anything lower than that has a gut shot or has some kind of Something.
No, there's a lot of hands that you're just supposed to fold flop.
It's like 9-6 or something.
Yeah, like 9-6, 9-7.
Okay, yeah. I guess it's 10-5-3, not 10-6-3. So
right.
that makes okay.
9-8, 9-7, 9-6, 8-6, all pure fold flop.
Okay.
8-7 off, basically pure folds unless it has the 8 of hearts, in which it continues for some strange reason. I guess because there's no heart out there. But no, he had a hand that you don't even really ever have. Period.
9-3.
You're not far off. He had the 8-4 off.
Oh, that's my favorite hand.
So pip too wide pre and 4 pips too wide post.
It's only 1 pip too wide pre.
Yeah, 8-5 off goes.
8-5 is a defend.
Yep.
Oh man.
Yeah, the 5s are like the cutoff for your middling, like 10-5, 9-5, 8-5.
He just peeled the 8 high backdoor.
He had the double backdoors in his defense.
It's enough of a back. You need like more cards. You need like a river and then a card after the river to have a backdoor.
I get it though. Like this is similar to the Jack 6 mistake that I made, where it's like you look and you're like, well, I wrap the 5, I wrap the 3, and I wrap the 10. What am I supposed to do here, man? You know?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit generous to call having an 8 when there's a 10 on the board wrapping, but yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah, I understand. You're right. Obviously, you're right. But to be fair, like 8-4 suited with the backdoors in there.
Okay, interesting.
I
guess you're wrapping the 5 more than you're wrapping the 10 is what I mean.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess a better example would just be like it's 1 pip off because like 7-4 is obviously like a clear defend no matter what. So yeah, I thought that was interesting just to see him arrive at Showdown. Also, we have a lot of hands to cover, so I wanted to get you guys a little warmed up.
Yeah.
A little warmed up for the session that we were getting into,
Yeah, it's an interesting river spot, actually, because it's one of those lines where, like, it's so easy to find yourself just calling every bluff catcher there because it just feels like his range is still so wide when you bet small flop, it goes check, check, the board pairs on turn and river, or, like, it comes queen on the turn, then pairs the river.
Yeah.
It would be so easy to end up just basically calling all ace high and better there. And I'm curious what, like, solver-wise, like, what does it want you to fold? Does it want you to
your
call...
5s become indifferent.
Oh, 5s are indifferent? Okay,
yeah.
Interesting.
It's a fairly big bet.
Yeah, I suppose that's true, yeah.
You need to be able to beat some sort of value.
Right.
You do call with a little bit of ace high. So ace 7 high calls at some frequency, ace 9 and ace 8 high call at greater frequency.
So having a 7 or an 8 is good specifically?
Yeah, well, the 9 seems to be best. Ace 9 off, almost pure calls.
Okay.
Ace 8 and ace 7, they're literally 0 EV, but they mix.
This is the stuff that's super hard about heads up because, like, who would think that ace 9 off is like almost pure call, but a 5 sometimes folds, right? Like,
yeah,
it just seems so counterintuitive, but it's all card removal.
Well, yeah, I should be clear. Like, not all of your 5s fold.
No, I know, but I just mean like
it's specifically the ones that block bluffs. So your 6-5 and your 5-4s mix.
Right. Yeah, I'm just reinforcing that card removal is just so crucial in these spots.
Yeah.
That to the point where, like, having a pair versus not having a pair doesn't actually matter as much.
I think also, like, when you're bluff catching specifically, you want to be able to clearly open up their bluff range because and here's the other thing too is, like, in heads up it's just really easy to over bluff, so like if you ultimately just start calling all bluff catchers, you're probably not getting crushed that badly here.
Right.
Or if you start like calling all pairs and maybe folding some of the ace highs, like, you're probably still doing just fine.
And if we force him to end up like over defending the flop to where he does have 8-4 off now,
never folding these pairs,
right, then like
pocket fours probably
he
calls.
just ends up over bluffing so many rivers.
Like pocket fours is a pure fold on the river, but it probably starts to call.
Right.
So yeah, I wanted to warm it up because you're going to see some shit, and we're about to get into the muck a little bit. So that was the third hand off the deck. So it wasn't like as if the tilt factor was like building up.
He woke up and chose violence.
Yeah, he was in a mood, man. We were gonna throw some chips around today. So the second hand, we're gonna see another single raise pot. This time, am I the opener again? I am the opener again. Okay. So I'm on the button with 10-7 of spades, and we are going to see a flop of 8 of spades, 7 of diamonds, 3 of clubs. Pretty favorable board for us. Same thing. We should probably be leaning on B40 here.
I was going to say, is this not like maybe I'm just thinking full ring more than heads up, but is this not a big bet board, or a board where you have some big bets at least?
Yeah, you mix between B40 and pot.
Okay. Makes sense.
What is happening right now?
I don't know. What is happening?
It sounds like the door is just like getting absolutely
It's a
buried.
neighbor.
Oh, I can't
It's the
hear it.
neighbor.
Could
Yeah.
be the neighbors.
Probably because Conrad was slamming the fucking door all day.
I don't give a fuck. They threw cat shit on our fucking porch.
Well, you know, that did happen. That did actually happen. Yeah. So this is between you mix between B40 and B100. I tend to make mistakes on these textures. Like I know this is a flaw in my heads up strategy. When I see these boards that I know bet pot, I mix with quarter because that makes logical sense to me to have a small and big bet.
Yeah.
Instead of a medium and big bet. But you know, we're working on it. We're trying to get a little bit better at it day after day. And I think the other thing that's tricky is like if this is a two-tone board, I think it does mix small and large. But because it's rainbow, it tends to size up a little bit more due to the backdoor factor.
Right. Sizing up on rainbow boards is something that's not intuitive for a lot of people, but it's really just all backdoor orientated. Like being able to fold out the backdoors makes river scenarios so much easier for you.
Right, especially when your opponent has 100% of his suited hands.
Right.
Right. That's the big thing that we need to take in mind with heads up is that you do not fold suited hands.
Right. They have every suited hand in the deck.
So they have every backdoor.
Right.
So yeah, it's kind of fascinating. But anyway, I think I chose quarter. The sim I ran those 40, so we're just going to roll with it. He elects to raise, and he chooses a good size of 4x, which is roughly pot and a quarter, somewhere in that neighborhood. We obviously have a clear call. Turn is going to be the queen of clubs. What do you think after playing like basically a polar check raising strategy? What do you think his strategy is now on this turn card?
So the turn is a queen of clubs, right? So the board is 8-7-3 queen, and the turn brings the
backdoor clubs. Yeah.
I would say that he's going to have at least some hands that check raise that don't want to continue here. It's very possible that he might have some big bets and some small bets because I think that hands like a lot of his stronger 8x might want to continue and get a little bit of thin value there. I also think, though, that you probably don't have a lot of queen X in your bet call range on flop, except for maybe like your queen jacks and stuff that have overs plus a couple of different backdoors.
You're saying for me specifically?
For you, yeah. So I'm just thinking like he doesn't. I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah,
like,
all my queen X is two pair.
Okay, yeah.
I have like a smidge of ace queen king queen, but it's like almost non-existent.
Yeah, so I was trying to figure out like how much he has to worry about you improving to a queen, but I guess the answer is not much. Yeah, I don't know. I guess having some big bets makes sense because he still has a lot of two pairs and things like that that want to get max value and also, maybe deny some equity to some of your gut shots and stuff that floated the flop. But I would say, what sizing did he use here? I can't quite see. He went like 1.2x pot, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think it seems reasonable to go that size with some hands, but I also think that like a block size might function with some portion of his range.
Okay. So I think the reason why you're considering a block is because you want to do something with like his strongest 8x.
Yeah.
His strongest 8x just mostly checks.
Okay.
So he's pretty much going to be checking like 62-ish% of the time with range. And his strongest 8x is going to be a heavy portion of what protects that checking range.
Okay.
He does have some bets there and chooses like 2/3 pot whenever.
Oh, okay. So he's just going like a single catch-all size.
Yeah. Well, no. So that's the non-dominant strategy. The dominant betting strategy is the size he chose, 120% pot.
What does he do with like the like pair and the backdoors, like the pairs with the club, like 8 with the club?
With the clubs?
Yeah. Or 7 with the clubs.
Those are the only strong 8x's that bet.
Okay.
And they're still low frequency. So like king 8.
Are they overbetting?
So it just mixes.
Yeah.
It leans still on the 66 though, because the overbet doesn't really function. You aren't getting called by worse, and you're not getting better to fold really all that much.
Right.
So you're really just only having it there to have a strong hand when called, kind of thing. So it's pretty low frequency for the big bet. It chooses the small bet at a higher frequency, but even still, ace 8 of clubs mostly bets, but like king 8 of clubs only bets like 24% of the time.
And for like a smaller bet.
So for the it's basically split.
Yeah.
It chooses both.
Right.
But yeah, a lot of the follow through here is hands that improve on the queen, either by picking up a backdoor So call it Jack 10, call it backdoor clubs, things of that nature, or hands that improve to showdown value. So a lot of his 2-pair, Queen 9, Queen 8, or sorry, Queen 8, Queen 6. Damn. He has a lot of Queen X.
Do you,
Queen 8. No, he doesn't have Queen 7 in his check raising range.
Oh,
so
okay.
it's Queen 8, Queen 3, and then he has some regular Queen X that's now value because I don't really have Queen X.
Right.
So he has like Queen 9, Queen 6 that had backdoor
Okay.
draws.
Yeah,
that
that makes sense. Does he have? Does it want him to continue with stuff like his flop straight draws that have one club in them, like his offsuit ones?
Some, but most just abandoned. So 9-6 is a pure continue, but like 9-5 is a pure punt.
Wow.
You just stone check 9-5.
It's so funny. I'm always surprised by at this kind of depth, like how restrained some of the heads up strategies.
Well, you have to be, right? Because
Yeah.
I'm never folding 9-10.
Right.
So when you have 9-5 and you're drawing to a dirty 6 on now a club turn,
right.
the hand was the sole focus of the hand was to try to win on the flop and then hope to realize some equity in the process.
Yeah.
Right. And when that fails, it just falls off. It's your worst candidate at this point.
I guess what's happening is in comparison to playing a bit shallower, the non-nut draws become so much more dangerous.
Yeah, because they can put a ton of pressure on 9-10, for example.
Yeah, but what I just mean is like the the 9-5. If we were a little bit shallower to the point where the reverse implied odds of making a
hitting a
6 and
6,
losing to 9-10 would not be so significant, then 9-5 might just keep barreling. But when we're at this level of depth, if you have a draw to a hand that's not the nuts, you have to slow down a lot more. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think that's true. So yeah, it's curious to me that he found the 2E size at 120% pot. I don't know if that was intentional or accidental.
Is that 2E?
Yeah.
That feels like smaller than 2E, isn't it?
No, it's 2E.
We call it, it's going to be like, yeah, it's way smaller than 2E. Because if we call, it's going to be like 30K in the pot. And
How deep do I have it sitting? The actual hand, I might have it too deep. The actual hand was 100K effective, give or take.
We have 100K behind facing this bet. So we're going to have 90K behind on the river after we call.
Okay, yeah. So I just have it a little bit too deep.
Okay.
Yeah,
river SPR would be 3 here once we call.
Yeah. So in practice, we started the hand about 100K effective.
Okay. So so we have like less than...
Probably like 80K behind.
That makes a bit more sense. Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, it is kind of curious that he found the 2E size, which is good. Although we'll arrive at the conclusion. So the rivers, I end up calling, which my hand is not a call. It's a pure fold.
Interesting.
So 10-7 of clubs obviously continues, but 10-7 of spades needs to fall off.
Yeah, I would think having a 10 is probably pretty bad, right?
Yeah, I think so because plenty of other sevens. Well, actually, I guess not. Ace-7 and King-7 of spades also both fold.
Oh.
So it just looks like your 7x begins to fall off unless you have clubs, which I'm kind of surprised by because actually maybe it does make a lot of sense. I was thinking like I block his strongest holding, which is 8-7. But I guess that doesn't really matter when all 16 combos are in play. And yeah, like pretty much even a lot of your 8x versus this size becomes very indifferent.
Wow.
So in looking at like where I become indifferent at calls, it becomes 8x. And I'm only calling with 40% of 8x.
And I guess
and then everything else is just pure.
Yeah.
So like Queen X plus just all continues.
Right. I guess it's just it's the threat of, first of all, a lot of awkward rivers for your hand, a lot of overcard rivers, and then the threat of the fact that you're still so deep that he can just jam for like 2.5x pot or whatever.
Yeah.
It is.
And in chat, I said I would have called a jam on the river. Something about the line just felt stinky to me. And I think maybe it was him finding the 2E size, which for what it's worth, like, you know, we weren't obviously we weren't exactly 100K to start. So this is going to be slightly less than 2E. But it was the first time I'd seen 120% pot come out of him. And it just felt weird. It felt awkward. It felt a little bluffy, which may have just been a bad read. But again, when we get to showdown, maybe it wasn't all that far off. So the river's the 5 of diamonds. He checks, I check down, and he shows up with the old 9-5 off.
Yeah.
Which is a low frequency flop check raise, and then, you know, a give up on the
Is it
on
calling
the turn.
pre?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's purely in there.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, on flop, to give you an example, it raises, let's see, it raises like 15%.
Okay.
20%, I guess, if you're being generous.
I think I'm almost like the most surprising thing here. I think is that he just checked the river, because it just seems like rivering a 5 is nowhere near as valuable for its actual showdown value as it is for its ability to block you from having some of your 2 pairs.
Right. Yeah. And actually, I'm being very generous on how often it raises. I'm just like looking at exactly 9 of diamonds, 5 of hearts, which raises a little bit more. The rest of them either pure call or it's somewhere sub 10%. So like really reaching for this one to be a multi-street bluff, and then obviously turn and river or misplay. But I also make a mistake. So like I basically only benefit from the fact of him being too wide here with the turn call, which I did feel in game in the meta, but I wouldn't have known necessarily that 10-7 was like a pure fold. I would have thought it mixed.
Yeah, it's interesting.
All right, let's get into hand 3. This one's a little spicy because we had options, and I went against my gut, and my gut is the fucking solver, man. I'm telling you. So this is a fun one. Single raise pot. We're deeper now. I think we're probably closer to 500 big blinds at this point. I defend black pocket 5s. This hand mixes pre. I had decided that the way I was mixing this one was going to be a call. We get a king of spade, 5 of diamond, 4 of spade flop. Face a third pot bet. I 4x that. He calls. Turn fills us up on the turn 4 of hearts. I went with B75 here, even though obviously I have a pretty polar hand and a somewhat polar range. On these board changing cards, I'm just like always of the mind that we kind of want to click back one scale on our sizing. So like, you know, on a turn brick, like let's call it a turn 9 of hearts, something like that, I would see that as being a potential overbet spot, right? So whenever the board pairs bottom pair, and you know our range does by proxy become more polarizing, but it also makes a lot of our opponent's bluff catchers a lot stronger. My mind shifted to we scale back a little bit, so I thought 3/4 pot was appropriate. Turns out pot is actually the preferred size. You know, we're not too far off. He actually raises 2.5x here. What do we think about that?
It feels really weird. He doesn't have a lot of 4x in his range. He's raising into a range where
I think he has more than you think.
Probably, yeah.
He has a lot more than you think.
Okay, so he's back. I thought a lot of 4x would check back the flop at some rate. Is he just range betting flop, or?
Let's see. Flop, he is pretty close to range betting. So he checks about a third of the time, and his only real pure checks are like exactly queen 8 suited.
Oh, okay.
For whatever reason.
Okay, so a 4 is betting at a high rate then.
Yeah.
And then when you raise, it's never folded.
4 specifically, nearly pure bet.
Okay. Wow.
So all the 4x candidates bet more often than they check, with the exception of exactly 9-4.
Okay.
And then most of them are damn near a pure bet. So ace 4, king 4, jack 4, 10-4, 7-4.
And he never folds them to a check raise, or what?
No.
Okay. Then he does have a lot more 4x than I thought.
Yeah, we're definitely never folding pairs to check raise.
I mean, I suppose it makes sense in some degree then that he would have some raises here. If anything, I think the 2.5x seems a little weird, because you're deep enough at this point that like when he's raising this turn, the majority of the time it's going to be with hands that are wanting to give themselves at least some possibility of playing for stacks on river at some rate. It's not necessarily going to be with a range that's just looking for like thin value or equity denial or something like that, right? Like it's really hard for him to just raise like a king here. It's really hard for him to have any kind of I mean these small raises are more consistent with slightly more linear ranges that are looking for a bit more denial, and his range here is not very linear at all. It's basically just like strong 4x and some bluffs, and that's really about it, you know. So
you're saying when he raises? When
he raises, yeah. I would expect to have seen a bigger size here, so that a bit more of your range is actually indifferent. Because right now it doesn't seem like very much of your range is actually indifferent versus that size. Yeah,
I think when I actually ran it open, it I believe it chose a much larger size.
Yeah, that
and
makes sense.
I had to bring it down to this kind of
right,
like click.
because it's going to want to jam on a brick river, and you're so deep that in order to be able to jam a brick river, you have to go really big on this turn.
Yeah, we're gonna be about 4.5 pots effective, assuming nothing else happens here.
More importantly, Airball's dad just said, "I hope Berkey slaps Nick."
Oh,
So just
Airball's dad?
Yeah, Airball's dad just came in the chat and said,
He's
"Wow."
in the chat.
That is honestly hilarious. Oh my god.
his name is actually Airball's dad.
That's his name. And
I love that. I
we
love
can't
that
confirm
for
or
you.
deny whether it actually is his dad.
I would.
Love that for him. So we do face the Rays here. What do we think our natural response is?
Theory-wise, I don't imagine we're supposed to have very much 3-betting, but the fact that the raise is smaller than it probably should be might alter that a little bit, because with the top of our range, our ability to get stacks on river is now slightly reduced by the small size of the raise. So I don't think it's infeasible to have 3-bets in this spot given the small size of the raise, but
Right.
it wouldn't surprise me if theory-wise, because the small raise isn't really supposed to happen, we could see some unusual stuff there.
Yeah, I can give some context to this spot earlier in the match as well. So this is the third time in the match that he had done this. The first time I called with like, I don't know, middle pair type holding and just won at showdown. The second time I 3-bet him, he called and then I jammed river on a board changing card. And now this third time comes through and I'm nutted. My instinct was like, this has to be a 3-bet spot. Like it just feels like it has to be. The board texture is dynamic enough where it's like, he certainly doesn't have a lot of raise folds. I think his raise folds would probably be a hand like King 5, which I heavily block, and maybe like Ace 5. But again, like I just block all of these hands, so it's almost impossible for him to have them, which means we just caught a 4.
Yeah.
And I get the notion of like, okay, we'll play trap because a 4 is going to bet river anyway. But you know, where that may be true, you just may not get the check. I don't know. Like I see both sides. Like I see the logic behind like, okay, well, if we caught a 4, there are very few rivers that are going to come where he's not going to bet that 4 when check 2. But who knows, man? If he has like 4-3, like he may just play raise check down type of thing because we are so deep and getting check jammed on is a fucking nightmare.
Right. Yeah. I think that my approach to these spots is it's usually pretty hard to go wrong just doing what favors your exact hand in a situation when your exact hand is a really low frequency hand for you to have. Like if you just 3-bet here because you specifically have pocket 5s, it's super unlikely he's ever going to be like, oh, you must have 5s. Therefore, I'm going to make a hero fold with a 4, you know? Like, so if you just grow the pot against a 4 and, you know, jam a blank river, you're going to get a decent amount of action no matter what.
Yeah,
because
I'm honestly,
just put you on 5s full.
I would love to know what the fuck he had. So I chose to call, even though my gut kind of said the 3-bet. Solve wants to pure 3-bet my hand. So you mix a little bit with pocket 4s for quads. That leans a little more call, obviously. And then 5-4 off raises more than it calls, but it does call some of the time. And then King 4 is like your big trap. Which you just have the board lock, so that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But anyway, I play call, and then river is the ace of diamonds, which for all intent and purposes in this instance is a stone brick. Like just a stone brick. It's almost impossible for me to have like the nut flush draw at this point.
Right, and it's almost impossible for anybody to have deuce 3.
Yeah, I think I have like exactly ace 6 of spades and ace deuce of spades. That's it.
Maybe deuce 3 of spades too.
It only fold. Yeah, you're right. Yes, you're right. I do have deuce 3 of spades. A very, 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 very small percentage of the time. It mostly just calls on flop.
Okay. So it doesn't even check raise flop.
No,
Interesting.
not always. It seems like a very low frequency. Or if it does, then I guess maybe it checks turn. Let me see. Oh yeah. Okay, that's what happens. It almost pure checks turn.
I see.
So it does check raise a lot, but then it almost pure checks turn.
That makes more sense because I would have thought that a combo draw would check raise at a pretty decent rate.
Yeah. I was looking at the wrong node. Sorry. So yeah, even that 3-bet's a fair amount on the turn. Ace deuce of spades, 3-bets some, call some. But I like have very, very, very few straights or top pair type holdings once we arrive at river. So river is the ace of diamonds, and it just goes check, check.
Okay.
And so like to me, I think that like we probably just found king queen.
Yeah.
Which does do a little bit of thin raising if you give him this size on the turn. But again, like the size is just pretty non-optimal.
Yeah, it seems logical that he would either have a king queen type hand or some kind of bluff that just shut down. I don't imagine that's a river card where he would ever find a check with a 4 for any reason.
Right.
So I don't think we like lost some significant amount of value, but I do think at this depth in particular where you're right, I think you're right that he might find some awkward spots against the river check jam, and he might find some check backs on some rivers like in ways that we don't expect. I think 3-betting turn seems better. Yeah,
it was a very weird spot. I felt like I was robbed. But again, like, you know, to your point, I highly doubt I was, right? Like maybe he had the nut flush draw on river to ace. I could see that potentially being a thing. Where who knows what he would have done had I 3-bet. But like, well, whatever. I mean, it's just
maybe
like
he just had something he's not supposed to have, like ace deuce of diamonds or ace deuce of clubs or something.
Who knows, man? We were just in a fucking clicking war. Like shit was going down. But yeah, that was a weird spot that only could really present itself heads up. Like,
do you think there's also like an element of there being additional value in taking weird click-backy type lines when villain is tilted? Like, do you think that's like,
yeah, absolutely.
Like, do you feel like maybe in retrospect, the more tilted he is, the more you should just click it back with value in weird spots?
Who knows, man? I mean, honestly, like I was so dialed in where I was just like, I don't know what the fuck is happening right now, but like we can't quit. Somebody lock the fucking doors. Like shit is going. I just kept seeing us play like 3, 4, 5-bet pots, and him like tabling a hand where I'm like, that hand doesn't do that, man. Like, I don't know a lot about this game, but like that's not how this works.
Are you enjoying being in a position where you have like really good knowledge of the solves now to where you can just be like, that hand doesn't do that, that hand isn't in range, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, I don't, is the thing. Like, I do when it comes to the game I'm accustomed to playing, like 6 and 9 max, but like it's not necessarily intuitive when it goes to heads up. There are a lot of spots where I'm just like, that's really fucking bad, and the group chat will just kind of be like, it ain't that bad.
Okay. Yeah.
You know? So it's like, I do need, I 100% need to lean on you guys in game, not necessarily in game, I guess, but like in review,
right?
To kind of make sure that I'm still looking at spots that I've already dismissed as being like just fundamentally awful by my opponent. And I should anyway, because if it is awful, I want to know how it's awful and like what patterns are forming that I can potentially take advantage of. So I do my due diligence, but there's definitely a lot of situations where, you know, I just chalk like for one, for example, that like I don't need to look it up. We all just fundamentally know it's terrible. But in a single raise pot on King 8-3, he just blocked into me, and it's just like, okay, well, I don't need to look at a solve to know you don't donk that board,
right?
You know, and it's just like the guy was fucking tilted out of his mind. We can easily deduce that at that point in time. But
yeah, tilt is where the solver goes out the window, huh?
Right. A lot of shit gets weird whenever the tilt starts to come into play.
All these AI advancements, they're going to make a tilt solver soon.
I want to be a part of the programming team for that.
Solve for tilt. Like when your opponent's tilted, this is what
I want to be the person that can solve for tilt ranges. And just be like, okay, well, we'll sprinkle a little bit of this, a little bit of suited stuff.
The tilt range in the solver is you just put everything at 10% frequency.
Right.
Every single possible hand that shouldn't be in their range, you just put a 10% likelihood of that hand being in there for no reason.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting, actually. Yeah. I feel like that's not a bad place to start. All right, so this next one was kind of the key hand. I know I advertised that the biggest pot we played was the bluff that he windmilled in my face. That's actually false advertising because I completely forgot about this one.
Look, you're covering.
I am covering. I was covering for the majority of this match. Also, why we didn't play on Monday. So this hand happened. I completely forgot how big it was because it happened so fucking fast. Like, the speed of this hand was maybe like 90 seconds total. But we play a 4-bet pot where I have the 10-9 of hearts in position, and we see a flop of 8 of hearts, 7 of spades, 3 of diamonds. Very, very good flop for us. He's going to check over to me, and generally speaking, I'm not really doing a whole lot of advanced strategy when it comes to 4-bet pots, and I probably should be because there's a lot of win rate on the table here. Like these textures, we know, regardless of how many bets have gone in pre, are textures that are going to kind of like gravitate one way or the other. You're going to see a lot of big betting, and then maybe some small betting or some medium sized betting, whatever. I just like went simple here and operated off of a single bet size, and it's wrong. So I went with B20, which is just like accomplishing nothing. He basically ranges are so tight, he just gets to continue with everything.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, you're applying a little bit of pressure to like the king jack suited's no backdoor, but like, whatever, man. It's such a small portion of their range. You need to be thinking through the spot a little bit more.
Sure.
And I think that it starts to get a little bit hairy when you're super deep, because the last thing you want to face is like stacks being threatened when you have such a high equity hand. But you just have to remember that, you can just always be the one to smash it all in.
Yeah.
And that's worth a lot of EV at the end of the day. If you get check raised on this board and you have kings, God bless, man. We're just going to play for it, Like if you can beat kings on the 8-7-3, you're probably going to win a big fucking pot. And that's something that I think like in the heat of the moment, our logical brain can kind of miss, where it's like we want to have control of how this pot gets constructed from this point forward, not recognizing that like, well, we've already reduced the SPR to 7 and we're like 700 blinds effective.
Yeah, that's a big thing for a lot of people. This happens a lot in tournaments too. People taking lines to try to control outcomes.
Yeah,
taking lines to try to be like, well, I would feel really uncomfortable playing an all-in pot with this hand, and I'm just going to like disregard whether that would actually be profitable or not, and I'm going to take a line that feels more comfortable by using this bet size or that checking line or whatever, even though that there's no reason to do that in this spot, strategy-wise. Yeah,
I agree. So yeah, I'm gonna run it now for the size I actually chose. I'm supposed to go either B75 or pot, which it doesn't really matter. I think you can just simplify to one sides there. I just simplified to the wrong size.
Just denying the equity to those overcard hands and applying a lot of pressure to the middle portions, I guess.
Yeah. Whoops. I am looking at the wrong node again. God damn it.
This 8-7-3 flop's coming up a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fun when you make a mistake and then just routinely get punished for it over and over again until you fix
same
it.
Flop keeps coming up.
But fortunately, we get a little bit rewarded in this one. So I did choose to range bet for 20%, which is viable. You just lose some EV. He then calls, pretty much doesn't really play a raise strategy here, only like 5% raise, but nothing folds, as I kind of insinuated. So he only folds 1.5% of hands, and it's exactly queen jack, queen 10 of clubs. So, the worst 2 overs with no backdoor. So he calls, and we hit gin. We turn an offsuit jack.
Badoogie jack. That's like
the ultimate jack.
Maybe not. Maybe the jack of hearts would be better, but still, like
I don't know, man. I don't even know if it would.
It might. Maybe it's not. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. It's pretty nice to know that you just got a fucking lock on this thing. Now, of course, he could have jacks, which could cause a little bit of action here, and you wouldn't hate to see it whenever you turn the absolute nuts. So 4-bet pot, we have the nut straight now. Checks to us. What sizings do you think that we're largely going to lean on in this spot?
Weird, because normally with a draw completing, like I wouldn't expect that too many largish sizings would be used, but in a 4-bet pot where he no longer has, like I would assume he no longer has like the offsuit 9-10.
No.
Like there's literally only 4 combos of his range that got there, and so there's a lot more hands that make like a pair or a pair plus gut shot type stuff now. So it makes a little bit more sense, I think, to use like a catch-all type sizing similar to what you did use, just because we're not as preoccupied with potentially running into the nuts, I think.
Right.
And a lot of our top end of our value wants to get some additional value from that, like pair plus gut shot stuff.
Yeah, I think the other thing is he has a lot of very weak pairs. So when you're looking at the overall composition of his range, because we chose the size on the flop where everything continues and we applied no pressure, he now does have a lot of 1-pair hands that are going to be forced to fold.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty good thing because we still have high cards. So, our hands like ace king, ace queen, these king queen, these fire twice here.
Right.
At a pretty high frequency. Ace 10 fires twice pure. King 10. All of these hands are going to be firing twice, and they're going to be applying a ton of pressure to like 6s, 5s, 7 5, 7 6 hands of that nature that are just going to have a really difficult time continuing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I went with 2/3 pot. That is ultimately the preferred size, as the majority of our range will choose this. Our checkbacks are mostly like some of our weakest pairs, like 9/8, 9/8 type of hands, and then like ace king, ace queen suited checks back at some frequency.
Do like 9s and 10s check back?
No,
Do they bet again?
10s pure bets, 9s
Okay.
pure bet. You don't really have them a lot.
Okay.
They're not high 4-bet frequency
Oh,
hands.
really? Okay.
Specifically 9s. Like you really don't have 9s much at all. And then like queen jack suited is a pure check back for range protection's sake. So we go with 2/3 pot, and he now calls again, which seems to be pretty reasonable. He's only folding. Well, he's folding about a little under half his range. River is the old offsuit 10, which I felt really comfortable with because he never has queen 9.
Right.
Like 0%. But knowing that in theory he never has queen 9 is not the same as
Him actually never having 3
right,
9.
him actually never having queen 9. And you know, the SPR here is like 2.5, 3, something like that. So he just donks for full pot. You don't say. And it's actually a strat. So he
Yeah, I mean, it actually it doesn't like it on some level it makes sense that he would have enough 9x here that you don't do a lot of betting when check 2. So him having
He plays a
some-
lot of
some
bets here.
donks it makes sense.
He plays a lot of bets here. He bets full pot like 20, almost 30% of the time, and then he goes all in about 10% of the time. So yeah, he plays a lot of bets here. He's very concentrated to the pocket jacks, pocket 10s, the 9x's. There's a lot of that going on there. Jack 8 actually does, like Jack 8 pure blocks, pure donks river, which I'm a little surprised by.
For value or as a bluff?
That's what I mean. I assume it has to be for value. I imagine that I just have like so many one pair hands. But let me look at my response.
Yeah, I mean, if you're bluff catching some one pair, it would make sense it'd be value.
Yeah, so I'm calling queens, kings, and aces.
Okay, then
so it's definitely for value.
Yeah, it's definitely value. Okay.
That makes sense. I'm mixing those hands, of course, but like I am calling them.
Right.
And he had the wrong suit, but he actually did have a proper bluff candidate. So he ultimately had 7-5 of diamonds, and it wants to bluff river with 7-5 of hearts and clubs. So, you know, take that for what it's worth. I'm actually surprised. I figured 7-5 would do a lot of folding on the turn, but I think the reason is that the 5 and 7 are just clean.
Yeah, that seems logical. It feels like there is at least some 7x that would be in some really awkward spots when they improve on rivers, like a 7 with an overcard or something.
Yeah,
would be in a really awkward spot, like ace 7. If you have ace 7, like when he rivers ace, he just
So he is losing EV with the candidate that he chose. That one is pure check. He's losing about a half a big blind. But considering how big the pot is, it's very, very minimal. And then in my spot, when I have a 9, I just have a pure jam. But I was still kind of like doing cost benefit analysis, where it's just like, if he randomly shows up with queen 9 in a backdoor, I'm gonna just jump out of a window.
I feel like as well.
There was too much bridge equity here.
I feel like it also comes down to, if we don't think he's doing this on river for thin value that much with hands like Jack 8,
Correct.
then he ends up just having nothing worse than a 9 that can even call the
Right.
jam
He just has
anyway.
that's the thing. It's like, I don't think he ever has jacks anymore. He's
Right.
supposed to, but I
he's
don't
just
think he
not.
takes like a check call block for pot line.
Right. I mean, like he just has a 9 or he has a bluff on that river, and
Yeah.
there's no sense
In practice, not in theory.
Yeah,
but,
right, of course.
And you know, hey, maybe this guy's the fucking goat. Maybe he just ran really bad this session. I
Yeah.
don't know, but
Maybe he's just been running really bad the whole 55 hours.
right. Anything is possible, but yeah, I kind of discredited a lot of the hands that could choose this size and then call.
Yeah. I mean, nobody finds the Jack 8 there, man. Nobody finds the weird full pot thin value bet on a 4 straight with 2 pair, because ultimately they don't expect you to just call 1 pair there very often, right? Like people
Right.
just don't find those lines. So I think just calling on river is very reasonable, because I imagine that whatever theoretical EV is attached to seeing his hand in that spot is probably greater than the likelihood of you actually getting called by worse than a 9.
I
when
gotta
you
say,
jam
it felt
anyway.
like it was worth a lot when I put the chips in to have him say you win. Like that felt like it was worth the additional couple thousand I was giving up
That
in
always
EV.
feels good, man. We would all always pay a little bit of money just to hear that.
Yeah. Oh, not even just like I know I win. That wasn't it. It was
Yeah.
the admission of defeat. You know, him having to acknowledge like fuck, he got me again, kind of thing. Where it was like, yeah, that's got to be worth like $3K in EV.
Yeah, just
sure.
forcing him to have to say those words.
Yeah, and then me holding my hand, not tabling it.
Yeah.
Like, well, show me what I win against.
Yeah.
let me see what you got over there. What are you cooking with? That was a fun one for sure. We haven't played too many 4 and 5 bet pots. Obviously, I'm super rusty. My sizings are way off. So hand number 5. By the way, we're into the bluffing portion of the hand histories.
Yeah.
If you haven't figured that out,
Portion where Nick has learned to
yeah,
bluff.
we're ending this one on bluffs. I get one through my, so we're trading back windmills now for the last 2 hands.
Oh, by the way, if this is the hand I think, I fucking love this hand. This
Me
is such
too.
a great hand.
It was so much fun to find in real time, and I haven't ran it yet, so we're all gonna get the results kind of together. The reason is though, I run it because it's like this line is so fucking nonsensical. That I don't even know what the hell I'm going to be able to input.
When you run it, it's like you're not going to get anything useful because the solver's just going to be like, what the hell is this?
I tried to run it once and it just says, this action's never taken.
Right, yeah.
It's like, okay, cool. So single raise pot, I have ace 9 of diamonds. We see a flop of king of spades, 10 of diamonds, 7 of spades, and he checks over to me. What do you think our strategy is here?
Feels like it's probably just a small bet board.
Mm-hmm.
King high is usually not going to be that much of a board for using big sizings that often. And in a heads up scenario, I would imagine when you go big here, a lot of his stuff that has any interaction with this board just has an easy continue, and then all of his low cards just have an easy fold.
Yeah.
So it seems like a small bet board.
Yeah, I'm mad at myself. So I was thinking about this, and I thought I was like actually thinking pretty deeply about it on the flop. So it is a small bet board. You're correct. We bet like quarter pot here most of the time. And I was thinking about this in real time, and I was like, okay, my hand obviously has great properties for betting.
Mm-hmm.
That's not even close. But I feel like I need to have like some 9x of diamonds that I want to check back. And I was like, well, I certainly wouldn't want to check back like 9x with a pair. So king 9 and 7-9, those aren't really going to do too much checking. And I was like, I don't want to check back 9-8 of diamonds. That would be insane. I don't really want to check back jack 9 of diamonds or queen 9 of diamonds really all that much either. Like, where am I checking back these types of hands? I was just like, ace 9 feels good. Ace 9 feels really good to just check back. Like, we have so much showdown value. We improve so often on the turn. It feels like one of the ones that I kind of want to have. And I'm not wrong, because a lot of ace X of diamonds does check back. Ace 8 checks back, and then ace 6 through ace deuce pure checks back.
Okay.
But I'm thinking about it in the inverse.
Okay.
When we don't have the backdoor straight draw is when we prefer to keep the pot smaller and check back, right? When we do have the backdoor straight draw, and more importantly, block a lot of his check raises, we're just pure betting.
Right.
So like I'm looking at it now, 9x of diamonds just doesn't check back. There just isn't a 9x of diamonds that really checks back.
Right.
And like you just have to be okay with that. So I think like that's where the brain solving in real time can kind of get a little bit cloudy.
Yeah.
Right? Because like I don't memorize all these strategies. That's not the way I approach poker. That's not the way I think. I just try to think from a very global standpoint of asking myself questions of like, okay, what does the shape of my range look like? And then how am I compartmentalizing that based off of specific attributes.
Yeah.
So front door draws, back door draws, showdown value with top pair plus, showdown value with like bottom pair or worse, showdown value with like 2 pair plus. How is all this fitting into bets and checks? And we got this one a little bit wrong. I chose to check back, but it worked out very favorably because had I not checked back, we wouldn't have had the best candidate I could imagine to take the line that we took. So flop goes check, check. Turn is the queen of diamonds, and it checks over to us again. What am I looking at here? Why? Oh, I still have it sorted for diamonds. I'm like, why doesn't he have any hands in his range? What's going on here? Okay, so we see the queen of diamonds on the turn. He, again, is going to be in a spot where he's playing a heavy check strategy. So he's only betting about a quarter of the time. And he's basically choosing catch-all sizings between like 2/3 and full pot. A lot of checks, though. So checks to us. I think we have a pretty clear bet here now. Yeah. Ace 9 of diamonds. We actually do a heavy amount of checking, though. So we're only betting like a third of our range, which kind of surprises me. The queen's a pretty good card. And I guess the thing is that he's supposed to have some ace-jack retained at this depth.
It's also probably partially that we don't, like, I imagine a lot of our queen high bets the flop because a lot of our queen high is going to have enough backdoor power that we want to bet flop to follow up, or is that
no? We have a fair amount of queen X, but it just doesn't do a lot of turn betting.
Okay.
So like a lot of our weaker queen X, like queen 6, queen 5, queen 4, queen 3, queen 2, is all going to be just checking back and trying to play a one street game.
Okay.
And then like our 2 pair plus, obviously it's going to be betting, but to your point, like most of those hands are going to be betting flop at a pretty reasonable frequency. Same thing with like our ace jack and jack 9. The problem is we don't retain enough of it through the check back line that this is such a great card for us. But we do have it. And you know, we do have some pretty good top end hands here, I guess.
You still have like some King X, like weaker King X, probably stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, basically what it boils down to is we have all the advantages. We have nut advantage, we have equity advantage, we have EV advantage, but they're all so slight. Right. So like the board is still pretty much a free for all, and that's why you're seeing a lot of the Queen X type hands just check back and play a one street game because there isn't a lot of availability to play a 2 street game unless you start polarizing.
Right.
In any event, I thought we had a pretty good hand to bet here.
Sure.
And it appears as though I'm correct. It mostly bets. So we went for the 2/3, 3/4 size, something in that neighborhood.
It looks like you went for an overbet.
No, I don't think so. Did I?
Pot was 2,400 on flop. You check back.
Oh, I entered that wrong. I'm used to turn bets when I put B75.
Okay.
I'm used to turn bets being 3,500.
Okay.
But I forgot that it went check check.
I see. Okay, so you.
So yeah, the turn bet was 2K.
Okay.
Sorry. That was my mistake. Okay. So I bet 2K into 2,800. He calls. That makes sense. Okay, so the river bet's gonna look weird too because he bets 15K, but in reality he bet 10.
Okay.
And I couldn't figure out how he bet 10, which was only pot when I wrote he bet 150% pot.
Pot is actually more like 6K.
Yeah, and he bet
6.5K.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so he bet 10. Okay, cool. So river is the deuce of clubs, which is an absolute stone brick.
Yeah.
Just a brick of all bricks. He does have some blocks here.
Yeah, it would make some sense to some degree.
I think it's a byproduct of all the draws missing.
Yeah, it's also it's funny. I've been looking into some of these block spots lately, and a lot of what the usage of block bets comes down to is that some of the hands that you were bluffing on the turn now have some showdown equity still. So like you have hands like the one you actually have where you might have like 10% equity. Right.
Yeah.
And a really small block sizing serves to sometimes actually make that hand indifferent between calling and folding, where if they checked, you would now have a different decision to make between bluffing and checking, but you'd probably just check because you have that 10% equity. So blocking spots are kind of weird sometimes like this, but this is not a spot where I would expect to have any like big bet donk bets like this. Like it just doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, and again, like when I say he has some blocking, I mean like this could just round out. It's like 2%, and it's all Queen X, and it's just super capped.
Okay, then yeah, forget that.
Yeah, I mean, I think your notion is correct. Like, especially if I make mistakes on the previous street, like, you know, the solver does prefer pot. So like, if I choose this smaller size, it could potentially alter things where now my range is a lot more capped.
Yeah, but I mean, it would probably just make him check raise turn more.
Yeah, precisely. Right. So ultimately, he should be playing check here, but we are going to eliminate that option and see what happens. Should he be forced to either? Actually, I'm just gonna give him only the 150.
This is one where it's like you can't even node lock yet on ruse properly. So
right, it's really tough because it's just pure checking.
Right, because if you give him the option of 150 or check, it's never going to choose 150.
Right, so now I gave him the option of 150 or a quarter, and obviously it's a pure quarter.
Yeah.
And I can't.
It's like the solver is like, please don't make me bet 150 on this river.
Right, and I can't make it. I can't make it like.
You can delete all the bets except for 150. Can't
No,
you?
yeah, but of course, then you're just range betting for
range betting for one. Yeah,
right, which is obviously it doesn't matter what his response is.
Of course,
So yeah, we're not going to get a very good response of what I'm supposed to do with my exact hand in position.
Who cares? Fuck the solver.
Right, yeah. So we're just going to talk about it logically speaking. So we arrive at this river with ace nine of diamonds. We've missed our flush draw, and now we're facing pot and a half on a stone brick where our opponent should have no leads. I think this is a great opportunity to talk about like how to take advantage of clear mistakes when you identify them in real time.
Yeah. It's just a spot where it's easy to attribute various things on earlier streets that would remove a lot of the strongest hands on this board from Nick's range. You know,
yeah.
A lot of the two pairs and things like that are going to 3-bet pre. A lot of the straights are going to 3-bet pre at some rate. A lot of the straights would check raise turn at some rate. So eventually you just reach a point where it just isn't plausible to attribute any kind of high frequency of strong hands in the range, especially when the river card doesn't change the board at all. Right? When the river card's just such a brick. Like if he led on a board changing river, even like what was the flush draw on the flop? Was it spades?
Spades, yeah.
Yeah. If he led on a spade, if he led on a card that completes a straight, like now we have some more complex decisions to make because it's not quite as unreasonable to think that some portion of his range improved.
Right.
But this is such a brick that it now just makes no sense for him to have any value, and we have blockers to all of it.
Yeah, and the thing is that the deuce could complete like a two pair type holding. It's the sizing that really it just like crushes any attempt for us to like think or give credit. Because like let's say that it does complete a two pair holding. Let's say his queen deuce suited somehow, right? And he makes like middle and bottom, and he bets 150. If we just raise pot with range, what's he going to do?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Because now he's in this conundrum where it's like, well, I took a line I should never take, and I have a hand that's like near top of my range, but gets absolutely obliterated by all the hands that can raise for value. So I never beat value. I only beat bluffs.
Chauncey is absolutely destroying me over here.
Yeah, you can't be nice to him.
Oh my God, I was like,
he's a savage,
really
man.
biting my hand.
Yeah.
Jesus.
I've never met a cat that bites. He's savage as fuck.
One of my cats bites, but he doesn't bite like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I figured you'd be like all calloused over from your own cats.
I'm usually fine, but he bites hard.
So yeah, like
Stay away.
just kind of using the brain solve here. To me, it was just a matter of like, I don't think we ever have a fold.
Yeah.
With ace nine here, it's really just a question of do we raise or do we call? Because we beat enough busted draws also, but we block some of the key ones that I think that we would want him to have. We block the ace three of diamonds that he may potentially turn into a bluff. We block like the 9-7 that he may potentially turn into a bluff. And also these hands probably check raise at some point on the turn.
Yeah.
Or at some frequency, I should say. In any event, like, to me, when it's close enough where you're not sure if you should raise or fold and you're facing a bet that large, you probably should just raise.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're facing a polarizing size and your bluff catcher is the properties of this bluff catcher aren't the fact that it has showdown value. Right? It's more so that like it actually does have very heavy blocking power to the nuts.
Yeah.
With a hint of showdown value attributed to it. So in my mind, it was just like, okay, well, I don't think we have a disadvantage of ace jack or jack nine versus like we both basically have same amount of combinations.
Which is very little.
Right. And honestly, now that we've arrived here at this point, we probably have a massive advantage in ace nine and jack nine because we would get check raised a lot.
Yeah.
So based off of that and the fact that my hand blocks both, fuck it, we ball. Like, let's go.
Yeah, we're just raising. I think this is a good example of the way I approach river raises is if we almost have enough equity to call, it's probably a good raise.
Yeah.
Like if we almost want to call, we probably have enough blocking power that it's actually going to function better as a raise.
Yeah, calling felt lazy to me. Even though, like, I think I probably win an appropriate amount of the time, it just felt lazy, and it felt like I just have way better hands that will just be auto calls.
Yeah, and I also just think, like, sometimes you get the really shitty spot where he has something like Jack 7 or
exactly.
like 7x of spades.
He's turning a pair plus a blocker into
I think
a
that's
bluff.
actually pretty likely a lot of his range here, like pair plus Jack or something that just decides, I don't think I win at showdown enough, so I'm going to bluff. And it just absolutely sucks to call ace high and just lose to a 7.
Right. And I'm happy to report this hand because as he did his little dance on the river and then ultimately folded, I windmilled that fucker in his face.
What was his reaction?
He tries not to react when I windmill one in his face, but I'll tell you exactly what happened is the next hand.
Very next hand?
No, but it didn't happen long thereafter.
Oh, okay.
And I got to tell you, before we get into the hand, the final result was he bets all in on the river for 225 or 250K. I fold, and he not just windmills this hand in my face, Hunt. Oh, no. He flashes it to me as he throws the fucking cards in my face off the table and goes, "You pussy, you never fucking bluff."
Wow.
And I just very casually reach in the muck, table my hand, which was also nothing, and say, "Had you checked, I would have bluffed."
Yeah, he's complaining that you don't bluff when you're facing an all-in bet on the river. How are you supposed to bluff when you're facing an all-in?
Well, Hunt, what I should have done is I should have pulled out my car keys and said, I see your 250.
The Hollywood play.
Yeah.
It's the James Bond movie. It's Casino Royale, where they're playing poker at the beginning, and he like puts his car keys on the table. He's like, "This is on the table. We're playing for my car."
Right. Yeah.
And he loses his car to James Bond. And it's like,
of course, because that's what's supposed to happen.
It's James Bond, right? Yeah.
Okay, so this final hand is very out of line. Again, Nick is going to have a hand that just doesn't ever show up in a 5-bet pot. So when I ran it, I just gave him 10% combinations of King 8 suited because it's just kind of not a thing. My hand's pretty standard all around, but let's get your thoughts a little bit about deep stack 5-bet pot situations.
Yeah, as if I've ever played one in my life.
So
I play MTTs. We don't even have room to 5-bet.
Yeah.
Right. So
It's the first hand of the tournament. Everybody's 300 big blinds deep.
So the flop SPR is just about 3. And we see a flop of 5 of spades, 4 of hearts, 2 of diamonds. What do you suppose the general strategy is going to be for out of position here?
I've seen a lot of out of position spots like this. Maybe obviously not so much in 5-bet pots, but like I've seen spots where these wheel boards, there's a lot of merit to betting a size to where the ace X is now more indifferent. So like it wouldn't surprise me if the sim wants to go like a really big size here, like 60 or something, so that any ace high that doesn't have a backdoor now has to be in a really tough spot. But at the same time, it's hard to say because the 5-bet pot range is like, I'd be lying if I said I had any familiarity with them. So I think the interesting thing is nobody ever has a set here, right? So I imagine that that's going to affect things quite a bit, and it might mean that the 5-better has a bit more.
I mean, in position we'll have 2 pair.
Oops. Oh, my headphones came unplugged.
That's okay. In position we'll have 2 pair and flop straights. Out of position lacks those hands. So there's a small nut advantage when it comes to the 2 pair plus range for the 4-bet call.
Okay.
But obviously the 5-better has aces in full.
Yeah.
And retains some pocket kings. Where in position, actually we also have aces in full. So yeah, in position has a slight nut advantage here.
Okay. So yeah, I guess there's 2 strategies that I think might be applicable. There's either big bet to keep some of the ace X indifferent and deny equity to the overcards, or small bet to just make the overcards indifferent and just accept that the ace X isn't folding.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. Like, you're not checking this board ever, and basically it splits between just jamming and
just jamming.
Yeah, just 3x pot jam.
That's like the spots where you get like 3-bet pot, small blind button, and it comes Jack 10x flush
Yeah.
draw, and you just rip for 4x pot. Like,
Yeah.
that's-
You just have
it's
ace
a
king
wild-
so much.
It's a wild one.
So aces does a small amount of shoves. It's only one candidate. Aces, spade, ace of hearts. Kings does quite a bit of shoving, and then ace 5 suited and ace 10 suited. Both like ace 10 of spades, ace 10 of hearts, pure jams. They do nothing else.
So I would imagine then if ace 10 is jamming, I would expect that means that when you have ace queen or ace jack, you have to fold it.
Let's see. Yeah, I fold ace queen and ace king offsuit.
So
pure.
that's why ace 10 is jamming.
Yeah,
then.
basically I only get to call with ace king in a backdoor.
Wow. Okay.
Um,
What pairs do you call with? All of them?
Yeah, no, I fold tens.
Okay.
I fold 10. I don't really have them much, but I have 10s, 9s, and 8s that fold. I call with 6s that I only have like 10% of the time, and then I call jacks, queens, kings, and aces.
Can you even imagine the public response if this hand
Right,
played out
yeah.
with Nick
Yeah.
Nick jamming 4x pot and you folding tens? Like,
Right.
Can you imagine the response on Twitter to that hand history?
Yeah,
And yet it's completely like
totally reasonable.
totally optimal. Like,
Right.
It's so funny.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I would have done if I had 10s and faced a jam, but
No, but like you just imagine what people would have
no,
said.
yeah,
like,
of course, it's insane. So basically, you mix between 20% pot and all in, and you want to be range betting. So the majority of his range is going to bet 20% pot, which he does. What do you think our response is?
This combo, I would be very surprised if it raises because it absolutely sucks to raise and get jammed on.
Agreed. Knowing that, here's a simple answer. Knowing that he has the option to open jam flop,
Yeah.
I think that pretty much spells out what our response is going to be.
Yeah, we don't get to really play pretty aggro here. Like we don't really get to raise very much. A lot of our at these low SPRs as well, a lot of our strategy with raising tends to become, instead of raising like a polar range, try to bet 3 streets or get stacks in across 3 streets, we start to raise like more condensed ranges for denial or for protection. And that might mean in this spot that it's not inconceivable that we might raise some small frequency with like queens, jacks, tens here to a small size. But I would also think that if we do have raises, it's probably more likely to be some of our weaker ace X. If we have like 7-8, that might be a slightly more viable raise because we don't hate getting jammed on quite so much. But it's also possible we just have no raises at all.
We just have none.
We have no raises? Okay.
The SPR is just too low.
Okay.
50% pot is the size that we would choose if we were to.
Okay.
And it would basically leave like less than a pot behind.
Okay. When I've run sims like this, I've usually allocated smaller sizings than that when it comes to raising. So like I would have put like he made it 15, right?
I just let it run dynamic. So
okay,
so
you let it
Ruse got
choose.
Ruse chose the size, and that was the size that it would have landed on, and it chose 0.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I might have, if I'd just been running it without Ruse, I would have tried to see if like a small size,
like a click,
like 40 or 45, like maybe there's some merit behind that, but I guess Ruse doesn't like that.
Yeah, I think the problem is that the 5-bet range is just so tight and so equity driven that you just get jammed on at a really high frequency.
Yeah, and it's probably also there's just not really anything that's actually indifferent versus a raise here.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So we see the turn 10 of hearts. Not my favorite turn card for sure. Was really looking for that 4.
Yeah.
Since I thought he had a lot of ace X in range, and my hand's probably pretty disguised. If I had to guess,
Oh, you mean a 3, not a 4?
or sorry, yeah, 3. If I had to guess, I would imagine. And again, I'm spitballing, but I would imagine he's probably not too studied in range construction when it comes to like these 5-bet pots. And I'm basing that off the fact that he had a hand that's 0% frequency. So it seems pretty reasonable. He probably has no idea that like I just naturally have like a hand like 7-6 in a 4-bet call range. So the turn 10 of hearts comes off. Pretty neutral card, I would say. Now the SPR is
Like 6?
no 1 point.
Oh.
Or just shy of 2.
I misread the pot. Yeah.
Yeah, just shy of 2. It's about 2.
Yeah.
What strategy do you think he operates now?
The 10 is, I guess theoretically it gives you a set more often than it gives him a set.
Slightly, yeah.
Slightly.
Yeah.
Nobody ever has 2 pair, well, except you still have a tiny bit from not raising the flop.
Yeah.
It just feels like a spot where his range wants to bet to be able to stack river, to be able to jam river. So something like 2E just seems About right.
Yeah, 2E is 2/3 pot here. That's the preferred sizing. He also plays check with some hands like Ace King specifically does a heavy amount of checking, and then like Jack 10 suited doesn't really need any protection because he's just dominated a lot. So it does a lot of checking to check call, as does Ace 5 if Ace 5 did not choose to rip the flop. So specifically Ace 5 of hearts, it wants to have that like pair plus flush draw protection. Ace 5 of diamonds kind of goes pretty hard in the paint. So he actually did choose close to the right. He bet right around half pot, which is a little bit small, but we'll forgive him. No real discussion here. My hand's a pure call. Basically, you just lean on equity. If you have kings and aces, you rip, because at some point you have to deny his hands that have hearts in them. Queens is still just bluff catching because you're just still beat by fucking overpairs. And then ace queen of hearts is like your bluff. Ace queen of hearts, and then I guess like ace jack of hearts. These are the ones that you kind of like find the jams with. Ace 5 actually no heart does a fair amount of jamming. Wow. Like 99% jams.
What does 7/6 of hearts do?
Still calls.
Oh, okay.
Pure call. Yeah, I would have gotten that wrong. And it's funny because I thought long and hard about that hand on the way home, and I was like, man, if I had 7/6 of hearts, I'd probably just fucking jam, and he might call with king high, and I would just be sick.
Yeah.
And now we get the confirmation, like, yeah, that actually very well could happen.
Yeah.
You just shouldn't shove.
And for clarity, we don't mean we know that he had king 8 of hearts specifically. So when he calls with king high, it's the king high heart draw.
Right.
We're not thinking that he's going to call literally just random king high. But yeah.
Right. Yeah.
He does have a hand that we really don't want him to have if we have 7/6 hearts.
Yeah, it's funny. His hand would theoretically fold versus jam. But I think he was way too fucking steamed up to bet fold a hard draw.
This guy's not folding king high flush draws in 5-bet pots. No way.
Yeah, I figured like I tanked forever. I almost jammed my hand.
Oh wow.
I was just like, man, I think like this might be the one. Like I don't know where I'm supposed to find my bluffs from, but like this might be the one. You obviously need to find it from pairs for good reason. But I almost pulled the trigger and I was just like, no, this is a bad punt. And I don't want Doug doing a video on it because this would just be fucking embarrassing. And I'm happy because like I do think he would have called off with king 8 of hearts. I truly think. Yeah, like in my heart of hearts, I don't think he would have had the fucking patience to just look at king 8 of hearts for it was for a 250k jam, by the way, on top of like, but the pot's already 200, and it's like, what are we doing here, man? Like we got the second nut flush draw. Fuck this guy. I call.
But you know what? The implied equity in you jamming, him calling, and then the river just being like
7 of diamonds.
The implied equity in that is so big.
There also would have been a fair amount of equity of me jamming him having to fold a hand that good,
and then
just windmilling that. Like when I was considering if I should jam or not, the whole thing running through my head is like, wouldn't it be so nice to just windmill 7 high in his face right now? But I didn't jam. I didn't find the bad play, and we arrive at river. So now the river is the 10 of spades, which obviously changes absolutely nothing. His range is very condensed at this point. He pretty much just plays checker jam.
Yeah, I mean that just makes sense. It like he has a small amount of 10x. I guess you have a very small amount of 10x. Like,
very little, yeah.
It just is a situation where his overpairs want to jam, yours have to bluff catch.
Yeah, his shutdowns
have to play a bluff catch.
Yeah, his shutdowns are basically like his ace 5s that didn't go for it earlier in the hand. His king jack highs, which he has only in heart combos and very, very small frequency. His ace king highs mostly shut down. Ace queen actually goes for it, pure bluff. And then his exact hand of king 8 of hearts is a pure shutdown. He's punting pretty hard here by jamming. It looks like he's losing somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 20 big blinds per 100.
What do you think what's the weakest hand you would have bluff catched with there? Or do you not want to say?
Well, I'll guess what I don't know what I would do, to be quite honest. I put myself in my shoes and because I ran through my head like, what if the river were a 7 and he jammed?
Yeah.
I don't know what I would have done. I'm guessing in theory the solver would start to mix at jacks. I would imagine like jacks and queens probably mix Kings and aces are pure calls. And then ace 5, I imagine mixes.
Yeah.
If I had to guess.
Makes sense.
But let's take a look and see rather than guess. Okay, ace 5 is actually pure.
Wow.
Ace 5 and ace 4 are ace 5 and ace 4 are pure.
Wow.
6-5 mixes. So if the river were a 7, my hand probably would have just mixed. Jacks does mix, queens does not. Queens is a pure call. And then ace king high mixes a little bit, which I don't know if I would find that one anymore.
That would be amazing if he bluffed with the king 8 and then you just find the ace king call.
Honestly, I could see myself getting
man.
there though. Like those hands almost feel easier to hero with than the small pairs.
Yeah.
Right? Because like it's easy for me to know that he can just have 7-6.
That would have been a 700K pot.
If I had called?
Yeah.
No, it would have been Yeah.
Yeah.
It would have been 700K pot.
What do you think is
With ace high.
Calling with ace high on the
What do
river.
you think is the biggest river call you've ever made with ace high? Like, what's the biggest dollar amount you've ever called on the river?
Man, that's a great question. That's a really great question, and the fact that like it doesn't just immediately pop into my head, I'm not entirely sure.
It just goes to show you that there's been so many of them.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
well, like when you ask the question, I have this visceral sense of I made a ridiculously big money call with ace high.
Okay.
But I can't put the
remember
details
when it was.
together of
Okay.
whether it was in Ivy's room or I do have one that comes to mind.
There we go.
And I did not get rewarded. We were playing on Live at the Bike, and this girl named Holiday was playing the game, and best I could tell, she was a fun player, kind of just like playing recreationally. But she took the game very seriously. And there was a spot where I opened ace king under the gun, got a couple of callers, and she squeezed very large from the big blind, and I 4-bet. And then she called, and it came like queen 9-3 or queen 4-3, something like that, with 2 diamonds. And I had ace king with the king of diamonds, and I had the ace of hearts, which was like the back door, I believe. She checked, I bet. She check raised, I called, and then the turn on like an offsuit 9, she jammed all in for like pot and a half. So the total pot size, I think we were playing 100, 200, and I think the total pot size was like 150K. So pretty big pot for the stakes. And I didn't take too long before just snapping her off with ace king high. And she had ace 5 of diamonds.
Wow.
I know. I'm sorry. The turn was another queen.
Okay.
That was what made the hand particularly like easy, I guess, on my behalf.
Yeah.
And she was like grilling me afterwards. She's like, "Do I have a tell? Like, what's going?" I was like, "Well, it was a 4-bet pot, and you'd squeezed out of the big blind and then called. Like, God bless you if you have a queen that wants to check raise the flop.
Yeah.
Like, there just aren't any. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, what else is left? You're not going to show me like pocket 4s.
Yeah.
You know. So, I got unlucky the first round I was a diamond, and then the second one I faded. But yeah, I mean that was probably like a 50K call with ace high.
Okay, that's not too bad. The alternative question I was going to ask, if you didn't remember that one, was what's the weakest showdown value you've ever called the river with? Have you ever called?
Oh, I've called with 10-9 high.
10-9 high.
I've called with 10-9 high at least a half a dozen times in my career, and it's mixed results. I'm like, kind of 50-50 with it.
Okay.
But in Turning Stone, I called with 7-8 high.
Wow.
Where I beat exactly 5-4.
Okay.
And I just looked the guy in the face and I go, "You have 5-4," and I called, and he goes, "How?" How? And like this was when I was playing like 5-5 or 5-10 or whatever it was, and like my roll was on the table, and this guy bet like hundreds of dollars on the end, and I just looked at him, I was just like, "You have 5 high."
I promise everyone this is before RFID technology.
Yeah, that's facts. That is facts. The 10-9 really stands out to me because it was when LeMan and I were like, I don't know if he remembers or not, but we were still going to the Brigada a lot. And I called twice in the same session with 10-9 high, playing 10-25 there. Yeah. And I got one right and one wrong. And I felt so bad about the one I got wrong, it didn't even matter that I got the one right.
I don't have any stories like that about calling down, but I have a story where I bluffed off with queen high, got called and chopped.
Wow. That's remarkable.
In a tournament as well. The guy put me squarely on the exact hand 1 pip lower than what I had. He was like, "I put you on jack 10," and he called me with queen 10. in a spot where it was like 9-8x whatever.
Yeah.
I barreled off, like rolled over queen 10, was like, you win, and he rolls over queen 10. I was like, okay, I'll take off.
Yeah, so happy. Right.
Yeah, you don't expect a refund there.
It's amazing.
But also, like, fold your goddamn hand, man.
Yeah, I was like, come on, man. If I can't even get queen high to fold, that was a bad bluff.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Ephra wants to know, what's the most you guys ever called off with Jack for off high?
$0.
Not $130,000.
Less than that.
I can confidently say $0 fucking dollars. I have punted 100,000
Yes.
trying to bluff with Jack 4 high.
Yes.
But the Jack 4 game was on. You know?
Yeah, it was on, and I did make a pair.
Yeah.
You know, like there was a lot of that fucking bounty was big, man. It was
hard to make a pair.
$1,000 a person. That was a
Hard to
big
make a pair.
goddamn bounty. It is hard to make a pair. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed this. Please leave some comments. Let us know if you like this style of hand review. If we're getting too deep in the weeds, we'll be happy to reel it in. I don't need to go through all this solver breakdown. I can just give you my thoughts if you prefer.
If we're getting too deep, you can kick me off the show and just have Conrad do it.
No, honestly, it's me this time.
Okay.
It's me this time because I don't want to reveal too much of what I'm thinking, so I
Right.
lean really heavily on what the solver output
yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Like, it's not me, it's just the solver.
Yeah, I'm just saying what the Sim said, man. Don't listen to fucking me over here. Ignore that guy behind the curtain.
That's right.
You know? But yeah, please leave a comment. Let us know if you enjoy this sort of like strat chat hand breakdown format. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, if you're interested in joining Matt Hunt for the MTT Tournament Academy, we have a few seats remaining. That is May 24th to 27th. It's coming soon. You have 3 weeks to sign up. It'll be a 2-table academy where each day plays out a different phase of the MTT, culminating in a final table where Matt will walk you through all of the big ICM decisions. Head over to academy.solve4y.io and be sure to check that out. Also, we have a new course up, or the latter half of a course on our site. Go ahead and check out the Primer 2.0. Matt did a wonderful job on that. I think episodes 5 through 7 are up right now,
Correct.
and 8 through 12 will be up before the end of tomorrow. So head on over there and check that out, solve4y.io. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow. Hopefully we have a big story to talk about. I'll get to the bottom of it by tonight and let everybody know ASAP via Twitter. Be sure to follow us on all our
Oh,
socials.
shit.
Is it investigation time?
We got some tea going on,
on.
seems.
There's some tea going on in the streets. So we'll be out here again tomorrow, noon Pacific, as always. See you guys then. Peace.
Later, squad.
Peace.